Again, feel free to use the chat to ask questions. This is a webinar format, which is different from what we've had in the past. So, as you're asking questions, both Kristen and I will be moderating your questions as we go along. And, if we feel that your question is a good one to possibly interject at the moment that one of our panelists is speaking or what have you, we'll go ahead and ask it at that moment. We will have a Q&A portion at the end where we can go back, review through some of these questions, and then talk about them and give you some more opportunities for follow-ups and so forth. So let's get started. So a little background. Obviously our platform, the whole intent of the Enflux platform is to help you efficiently tag, track, and upload documents into the platform. And part of that, Enflux automates the data extraction from multiple siloed sources. So we take overall program performance, analyze and organize it for you, and then bring it all the way down to the student level when needed. This will then create some great dashboards for you to look at, and then break down your results, look for efficiencies, and prioritize the types of things that you may want to follow up on, which brings us straight into what we're going to be talking about today, which is setting up or using action plans, along with the possibility of adding some attachments and using those, which in the end will result in accreditation compliance and significant improvement of quality of education, student outcomes, and best of all, better grades on your licensure exit exams. So next we're going to focus on showing you how easy it is to create action plans. And I'm handing this presentation duties over to Kristen, and she'll be walking you through this process. Kristen?
Thank you, Anna. Our power users are going to share several more examples, but first I want to walk you through one scenario so you can see how easy yet powerful the tool is from start to finish. So you'll see here I'm on the academic advising dashboard, and on this dashboard I can easily identify students at risk. For today, I'm going to pretend that I am mentor Dr. David Ferris, and you'll see on the side I have the filter selected, Dr. David Ferris, and I have identified a student at risk. Now, typically you can see multiple students on the screen at once, but for today's purposes, I only have him, so just his information's on the dashboard. I don't want to have any kind of issues with compliance or anything like that, so I just have his information. So let's say students have taken their second assessment, and I know the student is going to require remediation because we can see here that he is not passing those two classes. So he's in jeopardy of failing for the semester. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the corner of the screen, and you can see it says create action plan, right? So once I click that, let's see here, an action plan window is going to open. Now, you'll see that I've completed it with the following information. We have the dashboard insight, the data-driven decision, the objective, and our measurable target goal. I want to point out that over here on the classification system, we have the course and the committee. And other than that, you can see the ACPE standards and the students. You have the ability to customize 3 label groups other than the course and the committee. So the course and the committee are going to be the standard labels in the action plan, but you do have the ability to add 3. What we've done is we've created a label called students and automatically populated those with all the student names. That way faculty can easily tag those in the action plans. They don't have to worry about typing it or misspelling, anything like that. They can easily just select the student from the dropdown. And I'll show you a little bit more about why that's going to be so important in just a minute. So I've made the action plan actionable by clicking that little purple box, and I've just put this Friday on there. We have the assignee at the bottom and the collaborator there as well. You'll notice if you're new to Enflux, this is all going to be new to you, but the attachments feature is a brand new feature for us. And this is just what makes it so much more powerful. So I've highlighted that. You can either click browse and it'll open up your all your files in that little finder tab, or you can just drag and drop from your desktop. And I also want to point out our file format. So that's not going to be on the action plan, but it is in our knowledge base article, and it'll be on this PowerPoint for this case. But we have our file formats there, and the file size limit is going to be 25 megabytes per file. So, and that's just per action plan. So not all together, that's not your limit, but just per action plan, that is the file size. So once you hit save, you're going to notice something. Your action plan is going to be your attachment you'll see is right here at the top. It'll say you have one attachment there. And let's say Kenneth's taken his next assessment. We come back, we want to close the action plan because he has met his goal of 70% on assessments. You'll come here and click close action plan. Once you do that, you'll now have, this is what a closed action plan will look like. You'll now have two of those screenshots in here, our initial one when we created the first action plan, and then our final one on the final progress. Okay. Now we're going to take a look in real time, a quick look in real time of how this looks from start to finish. So I'm going to show you a video. Bear with me. Okay, so I'm clicking create action plan. That just says it's going to take a screenshot. I want to point out that the required fields on here are just going to be this dashboard insight and then your assignee. So what you fill out or what you choose to fill out on this action plan is going to be at your university's discretion. So how you want to use these, it's really, you have some flexibility with that. And also keep in mind that whoever you assign, your assignee, your collaborators, and the course and the committee, each of those, if the members are assigned to that, you're going to get an email. So everyone that you assign to this action plan is going to get an email saying, hey, you have an action plan that's just been assigned to you, come and check it out. None of this confidential information is going to be on the email itself, but it'll just say you have an action plan to go look at. Okay, I'm just going to pull up my remediation plan, and it'll quickly attach that once you press save. And there is your action plan. Let's open that up, and now you'll see your action plan. So that took less than 2 minutes. You'll see it's quick, but super powerful way to collaborate and keep all your documentation in one place. All right. So, no, we don't want to watch that again. Okay, so the next section is creating reports, and this is where I'm going to go into just how powerful that student label is. I'm going to go ahead and click forward to a video that I've created just because I think that'll be a better representation. So, in order to create a report, we're going to come to the main page. You'll click on Action Plans and then come over to Create Report. And all I'm going to do in this case is just search for that student. You'll notice a bunch of other fields over to the left and to the middle. We're not going to worry about those right now. I'm just going to select that student. You can customize it if you want to do dates, etc., but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Just Kenneth. I press search, and you'll notice a list of all of those action plans associated with Kenneth. Come down, I click that, click all of them because I want all of them. Come over to Generate Report, and I'm just going to call it the student's name, Kenneth Heagney, for example, and then say this is his remediation plans. And I'm going to sort the information in the report by label. So this right here is just how you want the report to look. So just the order of the report. I also selected the screenshots and comments I want to be included in the report. Those are those little purple check marks I clicked on. And here's my report. You can download it, view it, or print it. So I'm going to click download. This just says, make sure this is going to a secure location. So that's that window that popped up. And there's my report. I'm going to go ahead and click open. And here's my beautiful report with all that information contained, the action plans themselves, the screenshots, the comments, and you'll also notice our action plan, our attachments are in there as well. So if you are logged into Enflux, you can click right on that and you'll be able to access those attachments right from there. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to, you've heard from me, so we're going to hear from our power users. So Jason Mobley is here from Florida A&M University School of Pharmacy, and he's going to tell us more about bridging the gap between data collection, documentation, and tracking.
So, good afternoon, everyone. One thing that we were excited about at FAMU is when they showed us the action plans where you can add the attachments. That was kind of a huge feature for us because we've been wanting the ability to do that. So, some reasons why we would use that. So, number one, on the student performance side, we're currently using a lot of action plans either on that side or the academic advising side. So when a student doesn't perform well on a particular exam, then we're going to create an action plan. The professor is going to meet with the student and they're going to notate what they spoke about. Then they're going to assign that to a student services coordinator who's going to then meet with the student and determine kind of the course of action. So we started talking amongst ourselves and saying, what could we attach and what makes the most sense? So first and foremost, if a student needs to be tutored before the next exam, we have a CARE program, which is a local program that we have to tutor our students. There's a form that would be required to be filled out. So we would fill out that form and attach that to the action plan. Also, the student might need to be remediated. So we have a remediation policy. We would actually attach that policy as well so that that would be included in that action plan. Or if the student needs supplemental instruction, there's a separate form for that. So those are three things that we would put on the student performance action plan. Now, also, we want to use this system to kind of create a repository for different types of info. For example, a student has an excuse. We will scan that, whether it's a JPEG or PDF, and we'll attach that. Also, the ExamSoft activity report that actually shows what the student did, how they performed, we'll include that as well because we actually use that a lot when we meet with a student. Also, any type of incident reports could be added. And we would use this data too, because sometimes even in situations like COVID-19, we do expect there could be some grievances at the end of the semester. So again, we want to combat those grievances with as much documentation as we can use. So again, this data would be used to provide information to the professional conduct committee. The other thing that we saw too is recently, because we're using Zoom very heavily, we have a policy where we want our students to be on camera. We want our students to be engaged, right? So we actually go in and sometimes screenshot students that have their cameras turned off or shooting their camera up at the ceiling. So we'll actually apply that and say, okay, well, you didn't score good on your exam, but in all your courses, you really weren't engaged because you weren't paying attention. So we would include that as well. So we're using Enflux a little further than just what it's made to do. We want to keep everything there as a repository. And then, of course, the whole thing for this for us is to be able to create reports for ACPE. And by documenting and keeping all these forms inside of Enflux, it's nice and easy to report at the end of the semester. Now, one other thing that we're using too is on the categories per item dashboard, right? So we did a lot of work with getting our faculty to tag all of our questions, but we keep checking every exam to see if any exam slipped through and they're missing tags. So if they are missing tags, I'll create an action plan to that professor, and then I'll attach a one sheet that I've created, almost like here's how to tag in case you forgot, so that they have a one sheet to easily look at, and then add that as well. So those are kind of the things that we're using at Florida A&M to attach different types of documents to these action plans.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mobley. Now, Dr. Shah is joining us from Touro College of Pharmacy, and he envisions using the MPJE and Naplex dashboards, or actually he has, let me back up, he has assigned specific dashboards to specific committees and made plans for how they're gonna, what action plans they're gonna, what dashboards they're gonna use, what action plans they're gonna create, and what they're gonna do with their committee minutes is attach those committee minutes to whatever action plans they decide need to be made. Dr. Shaw, I don't know if I explained that okay or well enough. You wanna elaborate a little bit?
So I can definitely elaborate, on that end. Um, for us, it was very important to think about it from a very, holistic systems perspective, because we see Enflux as a systems-based, software solution. And so what we did was for the different types of dashboards that are available, we actually determined, which are the stakeholders that would actually, in some regards, benefit most from having access, and also, anticipated in some regards how these dashboards can be utilized for documenting continuous quality improvements at Touro College of Pharmacy, New York. And so what we did was, for each of the different levels of dashboards, we determined the stakeholders. Let me give you an example. The ACPE monitoring dashboards, for example, with the Naplex, MPJE, PCOA data, would be very, useful from both, a review by the executive committee that we have at the college, which is, broad-based, higher level leadership decision making. Program level decision making is what executive committee does. And so, at the end of every year, the executive committee would be looking at the, programmatic, outcomes associated with Naplex, MPJE, PCOA. And the reason the executive committee is a good stakeholder to, get access to this dashboard is because they, in some regards, determine where the resources need to be spent. So, for example, if we want to institute pre-MPJE, which NABP has just made available, and we want to pay for it, then in that case, the executive committee is going to make that decision based on the review of the MPJE results. So in a sense, this is nothing but data-driven decision making. And so the executive committee, in which MPJE results are reviewed, and the decision to incorporate pre-MPJE and make that available for our students is made as a decision, becomes that executive committee meeting minutes become the specific document that gets uploaded with MPJE results review that the executive committee did in itself. And so for each of these dashboards, we identified specific stakeholders. If I were to give you the example of the curriculum effectiveness dashboard, that would be the curriculum committee and the assessment committee. If I were to give the example of the categories dashboard, definitely the assessment committee comes into picture. Student performance, we have a committee called as Academic Standing and Remediation Committee that gets access to the student performance. And with regards to the advising, the mentors become the stakeholder of import. So for each of these different levels of dashboards, what we've done is we've identified specific stakeholders who not only would have access to it, but will get assigned for relevant decision making and documenting that decision in many regards. And that's how we intend to utilize not only intend, we actually have started utilizing, but make it much more intentionally, schematically utilized by different committees and different stakeholders. We do also intend to actually come out with some guidelines for each of these stakeholders as to how to utilize the dashboards. Those guidelines are in the process of development, so that there's more uniformity in terms of its utilization, because otherwise anybody uploads anything, and we have to deal with a lot of different issues associated with what's acceptable documentation and what's not acceptable documentation. As with all the software-based solutions, you have to be very careful as to how what the input is, and what the and how the output will depend a lot on those inputs. So that is what we are trying to do with regards to these systems right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Shah. Okay, next we have Dr. Shenberger-Trujillo from University of Texas at El Paso School of Pharmacy. And we're going to hear from her about how they're documenting and tracking student outcomes that reside outside of Enflux dashboards into action plans. So take it away.
One sec before you get started. I just want to encourage anyone who has questions, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat. And again, as we get to the latter part of the webinar, we'll come back to your questions. Go ahead, Dr. Trujillo.
So it's been an interesting process for us to implement this tool, and it happened to coincide with some of the changes that we're making with how we do things, but also this came at a time where we were moving to remote experience with COVID-19. So I think the timing of these resources being available couldn't be better. So since we began our school of pharmacy, which is still in its early pioneer stage of development, we have what we call an early alert process. I think this is similar to what was discussed by the other panelists, but essentially we have our faculty advisor. So each student is assigned a faculty advisor, and as a faculty advisor, their role is to go into the mentor dashboard and regularly review how students are doing. Before we started with Enflux, our faculty members had a special permission in Blackboard, which is our education management system. They were an observer where they could review each of their students in each of the Blackboard shells. And that's really tough for our faculty to do, to check in for students across all those different classes in Blackboard. So we knew immediately having Enflux would allow that quick dashboard to identify if a student was falling below a 70%. Now, we had already created early alert forms. So these are 2 forms that a faculty advisor completes as soon as an early alert system needs to be put in place. So as soon as we see that the student is at risk and needs enhancement, 2 forms get filled out with the advisee. The first one is an assessment if there are social or financial or other things that are not supporting the student's overall academic progression, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to start engaging in discussions about study skills if the student is worried about securing housing or food, right? So there's a first assessment form that's completed there. And to date, that had been done in paper copy. And so it's a difficult process to start if this paper copy has to be completed with the student and then submitted to our Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and the Office of Student Affairs to ensure that the supports are provided. The other form is for the specific class, where we identify gaps and challenges and places that enhancement or additional supports can be provided. Sometimes it's as simple as getting access to a more reliable computer. In other cases, there may be key content knowledge missing, which is something that can be addressed with additional supports. So those 2 forms would be completed in paper form. We've now merged this system into an electronic form, and being able to go into creating an action plan. So as the advisor is reviewing student performance for all their advisees, if a student is in red, so below a 70%, that action plan allows us to start creating the documentation and alerting those other individuals. So the people that need to be put in are the Office of Academic Affairs, the course coordinator where the student is having challenges, and of course the student themselves. So that's at the action plan level. That's where this all becomes really important for the early alert system. After the student has been provided additional supports, we are able to go back in, as was shown in the quick video. We can close that out, or if there's additional need for supports or remediation, we can continue documenting that as well. Let's say exam 1 and exam 2 didn't go great, exam 3 did, and exam 4 didn't. We can continue to document that and then upload additional documents to support the counseling sessions and other things that occurred. What I think becomes really important is when we hit the remediation stage. That report feature is super helpful. So you can pull that particular student, the reports associated with them, and that goes before the remediation group. So that would include our Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, as well as our Progression Committee. So it's not just an isolated piece of information from this class or this class. We can track all the various things that have been provided to the student. So hopefully the solution that is generated from the Progression Committee's review is one that's going to lead to the long-term success of the student. So those are some ways in which, in terms of student performance, we utilize that attachment feature. The other key area is with the PCOA. So we are one of the schools that requires our students to complete the PCOA each year. P1 through P3 year. We know that our students in particular, students from underrepresented backgrounds don't do particularly great in standardized examinations. And we want to make sure that they have a repeated exposure to these types of assessments, so that in the 3rd year and when they're going before the Naplex, they feel like they've seen this and they feel a lot more confident. They're not afraid of the system, right? But we also like to track our students. We consider this an external validation of our curriculum. And this is an opportunity for yet another data point for tracking how our students are doing. Each year, we recognize the top performers per each cohort. So P1, P2, and P3 cohorts have recognition for their top, usually top 2, sometimes top 3 if we have some ties, performers. They are provided a certificate in front of their peers. And this is a place where we can attach a certificate and document that they've done exceptionally well. And I think this is important for our advisors to know as well. So our faculty advisors who are counseling these students, they can't keep track of everything, but being able to see an item like that uploaded for their student, I think is really great when they're having their one-on-one advisor-advisee sessions. And then the other thing I wanted to, I guess, follow up on was what Dr. Shah had mentioned. So the use of this with committees. We go through a review of our AACP survey data. And when we go through that, it goes through many different committees. It begins first with our leadership team reviewing some of those data. And it also then goes to the curriculum committee if it's something related to specific curricular matters. It also goes to the assessment committee. And so as we make those handoffs from teams or committees, it's important for us to be able to have an electronic trace of some of the recommendations and actions that were identified from those data. And so that has also been something that we've been working on as a school of pharmacy. And to be honest, when we are reporting our data for ACPE accreditation reviews in our self-study process, we've actually used some of the dashboard views that Enflux provides versus the software that AACP has. And it's been really a rich way for us to continue a discussion about the importance of our data.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think we have reached the end, and now it's time for Q&A. If anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to share, now's the time. We're available for you.
So we're waiting on some folks to type in some questions. But thank you guys so much for sharing your insights. I think that I see that there's a bit of overlap, which is great. Um, you know, in some of the ideas that y'all are sharing, which I think is wonderful. So we have one question. The question is, how long does it take to implement Enflux? Well, the implementation is actually, you know, relatively quick, but it all depends on how quickly we can get data from you. What we usually need is access to your ExamSoft instance, and then also we will need, you know, if you're going to be using if you're a pharmacy school and you're going to be using the what we call the PharmD dashboards, the PCOA, the Naplex, and all of that, we need you to submit that data. So the quicker you get that data to us, the more quickly we can turn it around. It should take at least a couple weeks for us to get it all squared away for you, but it's relatively quick. I don't know if one of our panelists may want to share their experience with onboarding.
Yeah, I would jump in and say that our experience was very quick. You know, we had an initial meeting with Enflux and they demoed the product to us. We had some internal meetings and discussions on that. We made the decision to move forward. From there, there was, you know, a couple of weeks of getting access to ExamSoft and creating the accounts. And then the next thing you know, I received an email that our dashboards were set. We jumped in and reviewed that. They provided admin training to us. And then from there, we then had faculty training in November. And then, you know, of course, in December, we're running through finals. And then come back to January, we were, you know, 100% and working with everything. So I would say from start to finish, about a month. That provides all the training too. But it was fast for us.
The other thing that I would like to add is that I think for the first time in my experience dealing with you know, an external vendor, I was receiving you know, quick and prompt, you know, actions and responses. So you know, kudos to Team Enflux. Yes, they made the implementation very smooth and without, you know, much of an issue in itself.
Thank you.
So I would like to say that I've worked with numerous external vendors for different software things, and this was an easier process than the others. In fact, they were so responsive and were able to work out the details pretty quickly. I know that they provide you the opportunity to give them all of your data and then transition you into being able to access and utilize your dashboards. So that's a process. But the other thing I think needs to be acknowledged as far as building in that time to implement it within a school of pharmacy, there needs to be additional thoughts about policies and procedures for how these dashboards are utilized. And I'm going to pick on Dr. Shah here. I would love to see some of the examples that he develops. I think we're all learning about how to leverage this tool within committees and what types of things can be included within the documentation. So I think there could be some sharing here on what types of policies and procedures and training for not just for faculty or administrators, but at the committee levels, what are some ways that they can utilize these and keep within the guidelines for how best to implement Enflux.
Yeah, to begin with, I agree with you know, Jessica. You know, it really needs to be well thought out at the institutional level in terms of, you know, who you want to, you know, give access to, who can, you know, do what in it. And I can tell you that, you know, we in some regards have you know, delayed the use by different committees because we want to you know, make sure that, you know, there's consensus and there's quality associated with these policies and procedures. When we got started with Enflux, the first thing that I did was to call a, you know, academic dean's meeting to have the discussions associated with the access levels. And then, you know, I, you know, brought in my chairs because we have three different departments. You may have more. So, you know, bring in the stakeholders whose voice, you know, matters tremendously. You know, I had the chair of the curriculum and the assessment committee, which at my place are the, you know, highest, you know, voice and in some regards from an academic point of view. makes sense that, they have the highest amount of voice in these kind of decisions. And so as a result of these meetings, I have an Excel sheet in which, I have the names of the dashboards, the primary committees that should have access to it. If there are specific faculty members, that need to be given access to it, those, in itself. So it's a very simple, Excel sheet that I would be more than happy to share. And, I'm working on the guidelines with regards to, what should be, done with regards to different, when you open up an action plan, we have different fields to complete, and it can easily lead to a mess. So, I'm working on the policy document for that.
To follow up on the next question, what type of training do we provide to the school? So we depends on obviously on what you're going to be receiving. Everybody who has the Enflux platform and it uses ExamSoft gets what we call our EDU dashboards. The EDU dashboards include, and Kristen, please pop in.
Academic advising, categories per item, curriculum effectiveness, and then if you provide us with your curriculum map, we do a curriculum gap analysis dashboard.
Yeah, so we do all of those, and so we provide training as through webinar at the moment, and especially with given the current state of affairs in the world, we're doing it through webinars. But I'm sure the panelists can tell you we are happy to bounce into a webinar or to a quick call with a small group with individuals at any point if there's any need for additional review or questions. Or just some additional training. I know that we always have turnover at all of our schools, so we always have new people coming on board that need to learn the system and so forth. So we're always happy to provide that again via webinar.
Yeah, one thing I would like to add to that is, with some external vendors, their training is that they train you initially, and then they'll record it and say, go watch this YouTube video. And Enflux doesn't operate that way, and I like that. For example, here recently, while we're in home for COVID-19, our academic advising dashboard, we need to kind of go over that with our student services coordinators. So I had a call with Kristen and Anna, and they set up a training for our student services department that will happen in the next week. So again, I like the fact that they do incremental trainings, and they're not one to say, we've already trained you. They'll train you again. They'll come back, and that's one thing I really like about the product.
So just to also add, along with our EDU boards, we also are building out some Canvas dashboards that we built out. I know we have the UT Health system here in San Antonio is currently using the Canvas boards, mostly because most of their assignments or their assessments are being given through Canvas, so they wanted to feed it into Enflux that way. So we are developing and improving that process. And as you know, for all of these folks that are here, these are all pharmacy folks, and we have created all of their, what we call their PharmD ACPE monitoring dashboards, which is Naplex, MPJE, PCOA, and I'm missing one. Anyhow, so we do have the monitoring as well.
The AACP curriculum surveys.
AACP. There you go, Dr. Shah. Thank you. All the acronyms get a little jumbled sometimes. We had the question about which dashboards are customary for academic advisors. Typically, that's just going to be academic advising. That one is specifically tailored for mentors. And another question, I know Jason Mobley popped in. I think she's a faculty member from FAMU. Is that right?
So Ms. Lamb is one of our student services coordinators, and it's a good question. She's asking, does Enflux provide assessments type other than exam or quizzes? And one thing that we talked about is sometimes when you view the student performance, yes, you're viewing exams and quizzes, which bring the biggest part of their grade, but there's other assignments involved in that. So I think the question is, does Influx have a way to incorporate other assignments to be viewed so you get a total picture of their grade and not just exams and quizzes?
Well, I want to give you an example of what I do. We don't have TAs for every class. And so utilizing something like ExamSoft has become an effective way to grade things. So I create homework assignments in ExamSoft. So those, it's not just exams and quizzes,
Assessment.
but we can create assignments and utilize rubrics as well. And so I don't know if anybody else does that, but if I teach biostatistics and I can't grade everything, what's a quick way of managing that? It's placing it back into the software system that the students are used to doing. And it doesn't require the use of like a lockdown browser or whatever. Instead, I just treat it as an assignment, and that's what I do.
I don't see any more questions, Anna.
No, does anyone have any other questions? I'll give you a sec.
I know we're right.
We're right at time. Yes, you're right.
I mean,
So please feel free to reach out to us. Kristen, if you just pop into the next slide real quick.
there we go.
Feel free to reach out to us if you are a current customer and you pop into our Influx environment. You will see this little orange icon on the lower right hand side. We click on that and you will get either Kristen or myself, and we're happy to chat. We can bounce into a web conference if need be, so that is one way to contact us. We also have our phone number and our email, support@enflux.com, that come again directly to Kristen and myself. We have created a really cool Slack channel called Enflux Partner Collaboration. We'd love to invite all of you guys to participate in that. We have a few folks, and I know that the folks that are on our panel are already on there and sharing some great ideas. And the ideas that they're sharing are not necessarily all about Influx. They are about their struggles, their challenges, the things that they're doing, ideas, bouncing different things. And I know that a lot of our partners are starting to come in and really collaborate on some of those things, even try out some of I know that Dr. Trujillo put together a really cool survey that's already being used by University of Louisiana Monroe. So it's great stuff that's happening there. So we'll be sending out an invite if you choose to join us there. That would be fantastic. But thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. We will be saving this recording and sending it to you along with a follow-up email and this presentation. So again, thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day. Stay healthy.
Bye.
Feel safe and healthy, please.